The first time I read the HOA violation letter, I thought it was a joke. There it was, taped to my front door like some kind of legal toilet paper. Unauthorized use of driveway. Fine. $500 my driveway, the one I'd poured concrete into myself 3 summers ago, the one my son Eli used to practice walking with his new prosthetic leg. Eli was 9 with a smile that could melt glaciers and a stubborn streak wider than the Mississippi. He'd lost his leg in a car accident 2 years ago, the same one that killed his mom. Now he spent every afternoon in the driveway, gripping the parallel bars I'd bolted into the ground, sweat dripping off his chin as he forced his body to relearn balance. The neighbors would sometimes stop to cheer him on, except one. Mrs. Voss, the HOA president. She lived 3 houses down in a cream-colored McMansion with pillars that looked like they'd been stolen from a museum. Her lawn was a golf course, her roses prison guard perfect. And her eyes? Cold as a tax audit. The day after the violation, I found her standing at the end of my driveway, clutching her clipboard like a weapon. Eli was mid-stride, his prosthetic leg clicking against the pavement. "Mr. Hayes," she said, her voice syrup-sweet, "driveways are for cars, not physical therapy." I crossed my arms, my old Marines tattoo peeking out under my sleeve. "It's my property." Not entirely. She flipped a page on her clipboard. Per HOA bylaws, all exterior modifications require approval. Those bars are an eyesore. Remove them or the fines double every week. Eli wobbled, catching himself. His face flushed red, not from effort, from shame. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "You'd really punish a kid for trying to walk again?" Her smile didn't budge. "Rules protect everyone, even broken things." The word broken hung in the air like poison. Eli froze, his knuckles white on the bars. That night, I stormed into the HOA office, a tiny room above the community pool that smelled like chlorine and entitlement. Mrs. Voss sat behind her desk, typing away. Framed photos of her perfect grandkids smiled down at me. "This is harassment," I said, slapping the violation on her desk. She didn't look up. "It's compliance, Mr. Hayes. Your son's equipment lowers neighborhood value. We have a developer interested in this street. Modern townhomes, no room for eyesores." My gut twisted. "You're kicking us out over parallel bars?" Finally, she met my eyes. "You're behind on mortgage payments. The bank's already filed a notice. Sell now and we'll waive the fines." The room tilted. I hadn't told anyone about the bank. Eli's voice cut through my rage. "Dad?" He stood in the doorway, clutching his prosthetic leg like a teddy bear. His eyes were huge. "Are we losing the house?" Mrs. Voss stood, her chair screeching. "This is a private meeting, young man." I grabbed Eli's hand and left, her laughter chasing us down the stairs. The next morning, the bars were gone. Sawed off at the base. Fresh cut marks gleamed in the dawn light. Eli stood beside me, silent. His crutches dug into the dirt where his bars used to be. "I'll fix it," I said, voice shaking. He just nodded, tears dripping onto his Spider-Man shirt. But by noon, another violation arrived. Unapproved landscaping. Fine. $1,000 a photo of Eli's crutch marks damaging the lawn. That's when I snapped. I drove to the VA hospital where my old buddy Dex worked security. We'd served together in Fallujah. He took one look at my face and said, "Who do I need to scare?" "Not scare," I said. "Investigate." Dex grinned, cracking his knuckles. "Even better." 2 days later, he called. "Your HOA prez? She's got a side hustle. The developer she's working with, it's her son-in-law. They've done this before. Forced out homeowners, flipped properties. It's a racket." I stared at Eli's empty driveway. How do we prove it? "Meet me tonight. Bring a flashlight." But when I opened my door at midnight, it wasn't Dex on my porch. It was Mrs. Voss, and she wasn't alone. A sheriff's deputy stood beside her holding a folded paper. "Mr. Hayes, we have a warrant to search your property." "For what?" Mrs. Voss smiled. "Drugs." The deputy pushed past me. Eli's scream echoed from his bedroom. The deputy tore through our house like a tornado. Drawers dumped, couch cushions gutted, Eli's Legos scattered like shrapnel. Mrs. Voss hovered in the doorway, her smirk sharp enough to cut glass. They found the drugs in Eli's sock drawer, a Ziploc bag of white powder. Flour? From the cookies we'd baked last weekend. But the deputy didn't care. He cuffed me in front of Eli, whose screams turned to silent, heaving sobs. "Daddy, don't go!" Mrs. Voss knelt to his level, her voice honeyed poison. "Don't worry, sweetheart. You'll be safe now." They took him. Child Protective Services placed him with a foster family 20 miles away. I sat in a jail cell for 48 hours, replaying his face, his terror, his voice begging me not to leave him again. Dex bailed me out. He drove me straight to Mrs. Voss's house. "We're burning it down," I said, my hands shaking. He grabbed my arm. "And lose Eli forever?" "Think, Hayes, think." I punched his dashboard, cried. Then I thought. That night, we broke into the HOA office. Dex picked the lock while I kept watch. The street was silent, but Mrs. Voss's Mercedes wasn't in her driveway. Inside, files were labeled like trophies. Hayes foreclosure. Lot 7B acquisition. And a folder labeled Eli. Photos of my son, his school, his therapy sessions. Notes in Mrs. Voss's handwriting. Father unstable. Prior military, prone to violence. Dex snapped pics with his phone. This is stalking, illegal as hell. I flipped through another file. Bank statements. Payments from the developer to an LLC. To Voss Family Trust. "Bingo," Dex muttered. A floorboard creaked upstairs. We froze. Mrs. Voss's voice drifted down. "I told you, the boy's the key. Once the father's in jail, the house is ours." Another voice, the deputy's. "And if the kid talks?" "Foster kids disappear all the time." My blood turned to ice. Dex had to clamp his hand over my mouth to stop the roar building in my chest. We waited until they left. Stole every file. Took the hard drive from her computer. Drove to the 24-hour diner where Dex's girlfriend, Rosa, worked the night shift. She was a paralegal. "They're trafficking kids," I said, spreading the files on the sticky table. "Using the HOA to steal houses, then selling foster kids to the developer's clients." Rosa turned pale. "We have to call the FBI." "No," I said. "They own the cops. We go public." The next morning, I stood outside Eli's foster home. The social worker blocked the door. "No contact allowed." But I heard him inside, singing a lullaby Sierra used to hum. I left the stuffed orca he'd forgotten on the porch. Texted Dex. "Do it." By noon, the local news was blasting the story. HOA president accused of child trafficking. The video Dex leaked, Mrs. Voss and the deputy plotting, went viral. Police swarmed Pinecrest Valley, but Mrs. Voss was gone. So was Eli. The ransom note arrived in my mailbox. No words. Just a photo of Eli strapped to a gurney, his prosthetic leg missing. A burner phone taped to the back. It rang as I held it. "Bring the files to the old steel mill," Mrs. Voss hissed. "Alone, or the kid loses more than a leg." Dex cocked his gun. "We'll ambush them." I stared at Eli's photo. Number I, go alone. "You'll die." I grabbed my Marine Corps KABAR knife. "Not before she does." The steel mill loomed like a rotten tooth against the sky. Rusted beams sagged. Graffiti screamed warnings. "Die here, and trust no one." The burner phone buzzed in my pocket. "North Warehouse, come unarmed." I left the knife in my truck, but not the files. Mrs. Voss stood in the center of the warehouse, her pink blazer glowing under a flickering bulb. Eli lay unconscious on a folding table, straps pinning his wrists, His prosthetic leg was gone, the raw stump of his knee exposed. My stomach heaved. "Where's the deputy?" I said, voice echoing. She smirked. "Smart man. He quit the second the news hit, but don't worry, he'll find you later." I threw the files at her feet. "Let him go." She didn't bend. "First, the real files, the ones you stole from my computer." "These are all of them." "Liar." She pulled a syringe from her pocket and pressed it to Eli's neck. "Heroin overdose. Tragic, really. Foster kid with a history of issues." I lunged. She jammed the needle in. Eli jerked awake, screaming, "Daddy!" I froze. Okay. I pulled the hard drive from my waistband. "It's here. Let him go." She snatched it, eyes gleaming. Then she kicked Eli's table. It rolled toward the open warehouse door and the 30-foot drop to the river below. "No!" I sprinted, grabbed the table's edge. Eli's weight dragged me forward. My boots skidded on grease. Mrs. Voss laughed. "Should have sold the house, Maureen." The table tipped. Eli slid toward the drop. I threw my weight back, muscles screaming. "Hold on, buddy." His hand gripped mine. "I'm scared." "Me too." A gunshot cracked. Mrs. Voss dropped. Dex stood in the doorway, smoke curling from his pistol. "Told you I'd ambush them." The table lurched. Dex dove, grabbing Eli's arm. Together we hauled him to safety. Mrs. Voss writhed on the floor, clutching her thigh. "You'll never prove anything." Dex crouched beside her. "We don't have to. The FBI's arresting your son-in-law right now. And Rosa, she's got copies of everything." Eli buried his face in my chest. "I want to go home." But home was gone. Reporters swarmed our street. The bank miraculously forgave my mortgage. The HOA dissolved. Mrs. Voss's mansion sat empty, her roses dead. Eli refused to sleep alone. He'd crawl into my bed, clutching that stuffed orca, whispering, "What if she comes back?" I didn't have an answer. Then one night, a knock. The deputy stood on my porch, his uniform gone. His face was bruised, his hands shaking. "They'll kill me, please." I slammed the door, but Eli opened it. He stared up at the deputy, then held out his orca. "You look sad." The man crumpled. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." Eli patted his shoulder. "Dad says sorry means you try harder." The deputy handed me a flash drive. Security footage from her house. It's worse than you think. I plugged it in. Dozens of videos. Other kids, other driveways, other parents bullied, framed, broken, all leading to foster care, all leading to her. Eli pointed at the screen. "That's my friend Tyler from the hospital. Tyler Nguyen, leukemia. Vanished last year after his mom fought the HOA over a ramp." The deputy wiped his eyes. "There's a bunker under her house. I think some are still there." Eli gripped my hand. "We have to help." I looked at the orca, at the flash drive, at the man who'd helped destroy my life. "Dex!" I yelled. "Bring the bolt cutters." The bunker entrance was hidden under Mrs. Voss's marble kitchen floor. Dex pried open the hatch with a crowbar, the stench of mildew and bleach punching me in the gut. Eli clung to my leg, his fingers trembling. "It's dark down there." I knelt, squeezing his shoulder. "Stay close. No matter what." The deputy went first, flashlight shaking in his grip. "I never went inside," he muttered. "Swear to God." Dex snorted. "Save it for the confessional." The stairs creaked. The beam of light revealed a hallway lined with doors, each labeled with a number. 14th, 22nd, 9th. My stomach churned. Eli's friend Tyler was in one of these cells. A muffled cry echoed from the end of the hall. Eli lunged forward. "That's Tyler!" I yanked him back. "Dex, check the doors." Dex kicked open door 14. Empty. A stained mattress. A chain bolted to the wall. Door 22 had a boy, maybe 12, curled in a corner. His head snapped up. "Please don't hurt me." The deputy froze. "Mason? Mason Carter?" The boy flinched. You took me from my dad." The deputy's face crumpled. "I didn't know, I swear." "Save it," I growled. "Eli, grab his hand. We're moving." More doors, more kids. A girl with a leg brace, a toddler clutching a torn blanket. Tyler wasn't here. Another cry, deeper down the hall. Eli broke free, sprinting toward it. "Tyler! Eli, stop!" He skidded to a halt at the last door. 17. The number was scratched out, replaced with FREAKS. Inside, Tyler sat chained to a bed, his wrists raw. An IV drip fed into his arm. His hair gone. His skin ghostly. "Chemo," he whispered. "They said it was medicine." Dex smashed the IV stand. "It's over, kid." Eli hugged Tyler, tears smearing his shirt. "You're coming home." A metallic click echoed behind us. Mrs. Voss's son-in-law, the developer, stood in the hallway. A pistol aimed at Eli's head. "Drop the flash drive, now." The deputy stepped forward. "Greg, don't—" Bang! The deputy collapsed, clutching his stomach. Greg smirked. "Next one's the kid." Eli lunged. Greg fired. The bullet grazed Eli's ear. He screamed. I charged. Greg swung the gun. I grabbed his wrist, slamming it against the wall. The pistol clattered. He kneed my ribs. I headbutted him. Dex scooped up the gun. "Enough!" Greg spat blood. "You're too late. The buyers are already here." Tires screeched above. Men shouted. Dex shoved the gun into my hand. "Take the kids. Go." I herded them toward the stairs. Eli dragged Tyler. The girl with the brace carried the toddler. Greg laughed. "You'll never make it." I turned, raised the gun. "Watch me." Click. Empty. Greg grinned. "Oops." Dex tackled him. "Run, Hayes." We burst into the kitchen. 2 black vans idled in the driveway. Men in suits climbed out. "Back door!" I yelled. We sprinted through Mrs. Voss's garden. Thorns ripped my arms. Eli stumbled, Tyler clinging to his back. A shot rang out. The girl with the brace fell. "Go!" I scooped her up. The toddler wailed. The woods. We just needed to reach the woods. Eli tripped over a root. Tyler tumbled. The men closed in. "Dad," I set the girl down. "Take the baby. Hide." She limped into the brush. I turned to face the men. Bare hands. Bare rage. The first swung a baton. I ducked. Jabbed his throat. He gagged. The second pulled a knife. Slashed. I blocked, took the blade in my forearm, slammed his face into a tree. The third aimed a gun. "Daddy!" Eli stood behind him, a rock in his hand. Crack. The man dropped. Eli stood frozen, the rock bloody. I had to." Sirens wailed. Police lights flooded the woods. The men ran. FBI agents swarmed. "Hands up!" I grabbed Eli. "He's my son. They're trafficking kids." An agent cuffed me. "We'll sort it downtown." Eli kicked. "Let him go. He's a hero." Tyler limped out, the girl and toddler behind him. "It's true. She kept us in cages." The agent paused, radioed. "We need ambulances. Now." At the station, they peeled the cuffs off, gave me coffee, asked questions. Dex walked in, face bruised, grin intact. Greg's singing like a canary, gave up everyone, judges, cops, even a senator. Eli slept in a chair, Tyler's hand in his. "And the deputy?" I asked. Dex's smile faded. "Didn't make it." The door opened. A social worker led Mason Carter to his father, a man in a mechanic's shirt, sobbing. Eli stirred. "Can we go home?" "Home." The bank owned it. The HOA was ashes, but Eli's parallel bars still stood in the driveway. I carried him to bed. He mumbled, "We saved them, Dad." I tucked the orca under his arm. "You saved them." The knock came at dawn. Mrs. Voss's lawyer. My client offers a deal. Silence in exchange for dropping the lawsuit. I slammed the door, but the next day a letter arrived. Sell the house, or Eli's accident will make the news. I burned it. Then I called Dex. Time to finish this. The deal Mrs. Voss offered wasn't the last. Letters kept coming. Burn the files. Recant your story. Leave town. I burned them all. But Eli found one. He held the envelope, his face pale. They're gonna hurt you, aren't they? I knelt, my bad knee popping. Not if I hurt them first. Dex's plan was simple. Leak every file to every news station, every mommy blog, every veterans forum. Rosa printed flyers with Mrs. Voss's face and the words, "Wanted for child trafficking." We plastered them on every streetlight, every mailbox, even the sheriff's station. But the next morning, the flyers were gone, replaced with new ones. LIAR. Child abuser. My face photoshopped over a mugshot. Eli ripped one down. They're lying. I know, buddy. Then why isn't she in jail? I had no answer. That night, someone threw a brick through our living room window. Attached was a note. Last warning. Dex showed up with plywood and a shotgun. Sleepover time. We boarded the house like a bunker. Eli dragged his mattress into my room. What if they come back? They won't, but they did. At 3 a.m., headlights flooded the driveway. A black van idled. 2 men in ski masks hopped out, crowbars in hand. Dex cocked the shotgun. Stay with Eli. I grabbed my old tactical flashlight. Like hell. We crept outside. The men were jimmying the garage door. Dex fired a warning shot. They bolted, but not before I tackled one. His mask slipped. Greg, Mrs. Voss's son-in-law. He grinned, blood on his teeth. She's out on bail, coming for you tonight. Dex pistol whipped him. Where? Greg spat. Check your kid's closet. I sprinted inside. Eli's closet door was slightly open. A bomb taped to his winter coats. Red numbers blinked. 0, 0, 0, 2, 0, 0. Dex! He shoved past me, cursing. Take Eli, go! I scooped Eli up, still asleep, and ran. The blast knocked me off my feet. Our garage exploded. Flames swallowed Dex's truck. Eli woke up screaming. Dex stumbled out, shirt on fire. I rolled him in the grass. Bomb squad's here, he coughed, pointing at the flaming wreckage. Greg was gone. The cops called it a gas leak. The news called it suspicious. I called it war. Mrs. Voss's lawyer rang again. My client's willing to negotiate. I hung up, texted Rosa, leak it all? By dawn, the full story flooded the internet. Bank records, bunker photos, Eli's scream as the deputy took him. Hashtags trended. Yasir save Eli. HOA kills. Protesters swarmed Pinecrest Valley. News vans parked on Mrs. Voss's lawn. She fled. Her mansion went up for sale. We held a block party in her driveway. Grilled burgers on her fancy patio. Let kids draw chalk rainbows on her imported cobblestones. Eli wheeled Tyler around in a wagon. This is our house now. But the fight wasn't over. A week later, a woman in a pantsuit knocked. FBI badge. We found her. Mrs. Voss was hiding in a cabin in the Rockies. She'd dyed her hair black, filed her teeth into points. She's not sane, the agent said, kept ranting about cleansing neighborhoods. Eli tugged my sleeve. Can I talk to her? No. But I want to ask why. The agent knelt. Sometimes people break, kid. Doesn't mean you did. That night, Eli drew a picture. Mrs. Voss behind bars, him and Tyler outside holding hands. He taped it to her old front door. The trial lasted 3 days. Mrs. Voss never looked at me, but she stared at Eli, hungry. When the judge said guilty, she lunged at him. They're mine! Marshals dragged her out. Eli clapped. I didn't. Because her final whisper to me was, you'll never find them all. We moved. A little farmhouse 50 miles north. No HOA, no driveways, just dirt roads and a barn. Eli turned into an art studio, but last week a letter arrived. No return address. Welcome to the neighborhood. Please review our community guidelines. Attached was a photo of our barn and a new rule. No unapproved structures. Eli pinned it to the fridge. We'll beat them too, Dad. I hope so. The letter was typed, crisp, and smelled like expensive toner. Barn violates Rural Community Code 4.12. Demolish or face fines. $1,000 per day. Eli stuck a googly eye on the photo of our barn and wrote, "Boo!" in crayon. I laughed, but my gut churned. 3 days later, a black SUV parked at the end of our dirt road. No plates, no driver, just engine idling. Eli waved at it from the porch. Maybe they're lost, I called Dex. They're back. He arrived at midnight, his truck loaded with cameras and a shotgun. Motion sensors on the fences, tripwires in the grass. Let's light this place up like the 4th of July. Eli helped, handing Dex screws like they were candy. Are we going to blow stuff up again? No, I said too quickly. Dex winked. Maybe? The first violation wasn't a fine. It was a rat. Dead on our porch, its belly slit open. A note inside. Leave? Or he's next. Eli poked it with a stick. That's disgusting. Go inside. Now. I buried the rat, called the sheriff. He sighed. Farms outside our jurisdiction. Tri-county. County said the same. That night the SUV returned. I marched down the road, bat in hand. It sped off, kicking up dust. But not before I saw the sticker on the bumper. Pinecrest Valley HOA. Our old HOA, the one that burned. Dex hacked into their new website. They're rebranded. Heartland Rural Alliance. Same logo, same bylaws, different suckers. Eli colored over the logo on his tablet. They're like zombies. I scrolled through member names. Greg's photo popped up. Security director. My coffee cup cracked. He's supposed to be in prison. Dex zoomed in. That's not Greg. Look. The man had Greg's scar, Greg's sneer, but his eyes were lighter. Twin brother, Dex muttered. Mrs. Voss mentioned a Lee once, Army reject. Eli hugged his knees. Why won't they leave us alone? The next violation was a fire. We woke to smoke. The barn, Eli's art studio, was a bonfire. His paintings of Tyler, the woods, the bunker, all ash. I carried him outside, his tears mixing with soot. Stay with Dex. Dex fought the flames with a garden hose. I ran toward the tree line where the SUV had parked. Lee stood there, gas can in hand. Hi, Marine. I swung. He ducked. Slammed the can into my ribs. Greg died in jail, he hissed. You killed him. I grabbed his throat. You touch my kid, I'll kill you too. He laughed. Too late. A scream tore through the night. Eli, I sprinted back. Dex was on the ground, clutching his leg, bone jutting through his jeans. They took him. White van. Go! Tire tracks led east. I grabbed Dex's keys. He threw me his gun. Aim for the gas tank. The van was ahead, speeding toward the highway. Eli's face pressed against the rear window. I floored it, rammed them. The van swerved, crashed into a ditch. Lee crawled out, dragging Eli, a knife to his throat. Drop the gun or the cripple dies. Eli bit his hand. Lee howled. I lunged. The gun fired. Lee dropped. Eli scrambled to me, shaking. He called me a name. What name? Project 23. Dex's leg needed surgery. The sheriff finally came, took one look at Lee's body and said, self-defense. Clean shoot. But Eli wouldn't sleep, wouldn't eat. Just drew the same number over and over. 23. I found the answer in Lee's pocket, a keycard labeled Facility 23. Dex paled when he saw it. That's a black site. Military tested weapons there. Got shut down for experiments. On what? Kids. Eli walked in, holding his tablet. A map was open. Facility 23 was 10 miles north. I'm not scared, he lied. We drove at dawn. The facility was a concrete slab half buried in the woods. Fences topped with razor wire, cameras. Eli pressed his face to the car window. Kids are in there? Maybe. Then we saved them. The keycard worked. The door hissed open. Alarms blared. The alarm screamed like a wounded animal. Red lights pulsed, turning the hallway into a strobe-lit nightmare. Eli gripped my hand, his fingers ice cold. They're coming, aren't they? Dex limped behind us, his bad leg dragging. Just keep moving. We ran past empty labs, cages with shredded blankets, IV poles tipped over, syringes crunching underfoot. A whiteboard listed names. Project 23, Enhanced Durability. Project 24, Neural Acceleration. Eli froze. That's me. He pointed at a file on the floor. Subject 23, Elijah Hayes. Genetic markers indicate rapid musculoskeletal regeneration. Terminated parental interference. My stomach lurched. Terminated? They wanted to cut me open, Eli whispered. Dex grabbed the file. Not gonna happen. Footsteps pounded behind us. Shouts. Secure Subject 23. I shoved Eli into a supply closet. Stay, breathe, don't move. He clutched his stuffed orca. Don't die, Dad. Dex and I charged the guards. They weren't cops. They weren't military. They wore HOA polos. Greg's twin, Lee, had lied. This wasn't shut down. It was theirs. Dex disarmed the first guard, snapping his wrist. I tackled the second, his head smacking tile. The third fired. The bullet tore through my shoulder. I didn't feel it. Adrenaline. Rage. Eli. Dex shot the guard. Hayes, you're hit. Keep going. We followed the signs to holding. The door was steel, locked. Dex pressed Lee's keycard. Denied. Eli's voice crackled over a wall intercom. Dad, I fixed the computer. A camera above us blinked green. The door clicked open. Eli had hacked the system. The room was a dorm, bunk beds, faded superhero posters, and kids, dozens of them. Tyler sat on a cot, his arm hooked to an IV. The girl from the bunker braided another kid's hair. They froze when we entered. Tyler stood, trembling. They said you were dead. Eli burst in, limping. We're here to save you. The kids erupted, hugs, tears, snot. A boy with no legs wheeled over. Is there cake outside? Dex laughed. Better. Freedom. But the intercom hissed. Facility lockdown initiated. Detonation in T-minus 10 minutes. Mrs. Voss's voice. She was alive, and she'd rigged the place to burn. We herded the kids down the hall. Eli led, his orca held high like a torch. Follow the exit signs. Dex carried the legless boy. I hauled 2 toddlers. Tyler dragged his IV pole. A guard blocked the exit. Eli didn't hesitate. He threw his orca. The guard stumbled. Dex knocked him out. Sunlight, fresh air, a field of dandelions. The kids erupted into the open, screaming, laughing, alive. But the facility exploded before we'd crossed the tree line. The blast threw us forward. Eli landed on top of me. Dad, Dad! My ears rang. Smoke choked the sky. Mrs. Voss stood at the tree line, a remote in her hand. You don't get to win. I crawled toward her. It's over. She aimed a pistol at Eli. Number. It's fair. A shot rang out. Mrs. Voss dropped. Behind her stood the deputy's widow, Mason Carter's mom, a hunting rifle in her hands. That's for my boy. The cops took forever. The kids ate gas station snacks in Dex's truck. Eli bandaged my shoulder with Batman Band-Aids. The widow handed me a note. Found this in Mason's stuff. A crayon map of Facility 23. Another location circled. Place 2. Eli traced the map. There's more? Always more. But for now, we drove home, to the farm, to the new HOA notice on our door. Unapproved dandelions. Fine, $500. Eli drew a middle finger on it. I framed it. We never tore down the barn. Let the dandelions grow. Let the Heartland Rural Alliance waste their stamps. Every fine they sent, Eli doodled on and mailed back. He drew Mrs. Voss as a cockroach, Lee as a melted ice cream cone, and their HOA empire as a crumbling sandcastle. The local news added up. Boy who survived HOA hell trolls new bullies. The FBI raided Place 2 a month later. Another bunker, more kids. But this time, the world was watching. Politicians scrambled. Laws changed. Eli's law banned HOAs from foreclosing over petty violations. The president sent Eli a letter. He used it to make a paper airplane. Dex recovered, but walks with a cane now. He moved into our barn, turned it into a gym for the rescued kids. Tyler comes every weekend to paint murals over the scorch marks. The girl with the leg brace, Luna, teaches Eli karate. For next time, she says. There won't be a next time. Tonight we're having a bonfire. The sheriff, the deputy's widow, Dex, and all the kids roast marshmallows on Mrs. Voss's old driveway. The mansion's a community center now. Luna and Tyler run a lemonade stand where her rose garden used to be. $1. Free refills for people who hate HOAs. Eli nudges me, his face sticky with marshmallow. Remember when you said we'd never lose the house? I was wrong. Nuh-uh. He points to the stars. Home's not a place, it's us. I choke up. Dex throws a beer at my head. Don't get soft, Hayes. Later, I find Eli in the barn scribbling in a notebook. What are you writing? He slams it shut. A story. For kids like me. So they know monsters lose. The first page says, this HOA tried to fine me for using my own driveway. So I burned their empire to the ground. I ruffle his hair. Too long, needs more dragons. He grins. Nah, it's perfect. The next morning, another letter arrives. Violation, unapproved joy, fine, $0. 0 cents. Eli tapes it to the fridge right next to his middle finger masterpiece. They'll never stop, I say. He grabs his basketball, heading to the driveway. Good, makes it fun. I watch him shoot hoops, his prosthetic leg steady, his laugh loud enough to shake the stars. They'll keep coming. We'll keep winning.